ChrisDewolfe, welcome to TechCrunch TV.
Thank you for having me here.
Chris, I don't think you need much of an introduction to our audience, but for the small minority of people who don't know about you, you were, of course, the co-founder and CEO of Myspace, and now you are the founder and CEO of MindJolt.
Correct.
Chris, we're at FailCon, the annual San Francisco event celebrating failure. Why are you speaking here?
Well, I think it's a little bit of an interesting name for the event itself because I actually think it's a lot more about learning from mistakes that you've made in the past and applying those learnings to what you might be doing in the future and taking any of those messages and disseminating them out to the people that really need to know. Allow them to cut a few corners.
What mistakes have you made, Chris?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of mistakes made, and I could say there was both mistakes made from when we sold the company.
This is Myspace.
Myspace, and you look at the change in corporate culture and going from a startup to a large media company, and all the things that happen that you have to adjust to during that period of time. And my current company, MindJolt, is actually a gaming roll-up in both the mobile space and with Facebook games. So we're buying a lot of companies too, and we want to make sure the special nature of the reason that we bought those companies stays around, meaning maintain that corporate culture as we realize the sort of economies of scale and taking a bunch of smaller companies and putting them together into building one big company.
What then exactly did you learn from the Myspace experience that you're importing into MindJolt?
There's a lot of things. I mean, number one, we hired incredibly quickly at Myspace, meaning we hired approximately 1,600 people in a 2-year time period.
Were you like the Google boys and approved all of them, or did you allow other people to?
Yeah, we were moving so quickly that we didn't have time to interview every single person. So we got to the point where if there was a problem, sometimes we'd just end up throwing more bodies at it, and then things would slow down even more quickly. I think the other thing that I learned was that if you're buying a company, there's a reason that you're buying a company because they're successful in and of everything that they've done in the past, meaning their creativity, their product vision, and there's certain things that you just don't want to get in the way of. And I feel that there are times at News Corp where the bigger company did get in the way of what we were doing at Myspace. We made some of the wrong decisions. And I want to make sure we don't do the same things with all the companies that we've acquired to date through MindJolt.
What did you do before Myspace?
I had an internet marketing company called ResponseBase with approximately 40, 50 people that we sold to another company.
And how valuable were the lessons in your pre-Myspace career in terms of porting into the Myspace experience?
You learn every year, and you learn that, speed to market is very important. The product working. So if you look at the early days of Myspace, one of the reasons we were successful is sometimes we would stay up all night just to make sure that the site was up and running. There were, other sites out there like Friendster that weren't that dissimilar. Ours was maybe a little bit more on the creative side, but we made sure that ours worked and was available to all the consumers out there that wanted to use it. And some of the other sites that were competitors out there just didn't work. It would take 30 seconds to log on. So I guess to sort of a long-winded answer, but to make sure that the user experience trumps everything, including short-term profits.
Is the startup experience today in 2011, is it profoundly different from the startup experience at the beginning of the 21st century? When did you start Myspace? Was it 2003, 2004?
Late 2003, yeah. So there's definitely a lot more money out there right now.
Right. You founded it in the depth of the initial recession, right?
Everything was starting to come back a little bit at that point, but then it was a very sort of simple model where you would go to Sand Hill Road and go to the usual suspects with your business plan, raise money, get a good valuation, form a board, and go from there. Now you have so many other options, especially with the whole angel community and all of the incubators that have emerged, that I think it's a lot more interesting and gives the entrepreneur so many more choices.
So you're happy with the way in which the angel community now is challenging the authority of the traditional VC?
I think it's fantastic. I mean, I think, depending on who you are and what you want to do, if you want to move very quickly and you have a great plan and you can raise, a significant amount of money at a valuation that's favorable to you, there's no reason not to go directly to VCs. But if you have a new startup and you really want to sort of test the product, see if it works, see if it's going to be adopted by the consumer, then the angel route is a fantastic way to go. And I think that the majority of angels out there have been there, done that, and can be extremely helpful if you find the right ones.
Is the startup experience in the blood? There's something about you, and don't take this personally, there's an element of the rock star about you, and it kind of reminds me of the Mick Jagger or the Keith Richards who can't stop touring. Could you ever give this thing up?
I don't know. I think one day it might be fun to be an investor and be on the other side of it. We had started, strangely enough, a record label at Myspace that ended up being more about a hobby, but one of the bands we signed sold over 500,000 units, which was
that band?
It was called Hollywood Undead. And we did that in a partnership with Interscope Records. So that was a lot of fun. I like the whole creative aspect of it. I like the ability to move quickly. Again, there were times at News Corp where we found ourselves ensconced in meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting, and deck after deck after deck when we just really wanted to get to work. But in a way, it was sort of interesting because if you look at Rupert Murdoch at News Corp, he's sort of the consummate entrepreneur. He started with a small newspaper in Adelaide, Australia, and built that up into the media empire that it is now.
Do you think you can build a large media company and maintain your agility, your ability to disrupt?
That's a really interesting question because I think you see Google sort of going through some of the same questions right now, right? So Google is still disrupting to a certain degree, but a lot of the companies they've acquired, they haven't done what they originally set out to do with them, and in fact they've dismantled a lot of them. So my point is that the problems you run into with a large media company aren't that dissimilar to the problems that you'd run into with a technology company.
Do you think Facebook will eventually stumble into that as well?
I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between Facebook, I think, and Apple, and they did a great job disrupting and innovating, so I think it can be done, but I think it's the rare company and the rare entrepreneur that's actually able to do that.
Do you consider MySpace to be a failure?
No, when I left, I guess it was March 2009, we had the same number of unique users as Facebook, and we had probably 20 to 30% more page views. So we certainly weren't growing like they were, but if you look at their valuation right now at $100 billion, I think if we had kept on and continued to build the features that our users wanted, we hadn't been so profit-driven, and we've been more growth-driven and creating the right experience for the user that, it really could have kept growing. But, it was a seminal company for its time. It, I think, in a lot of ways provided some of the building blocks for what Facebook's done in the future, and my hats go off to them and the way they've executed, and they've done it in an extremely elegant way. But I'd like to say that MySpace had a lot to do with the evolution of social media.
Is that what you would like, in part at least, of course, independently of your other achievements? Is that what you'd like to be remembered for being a seminal figure in the evolution of social media?
Social media, and that, you can break that down into music, and you can look at what it did for independent bands. You can look at what it did for, even dating on the internet.
Even dating?
Yeah, when there was always somewhat of a stigma associated with going on some of the dating sites that you had to pay for, but in a certain way you could go on MySpace or some of the other social networking sites and use it for dating and connecting with new people. but in a way that was, very normal and, part of what you would do in your everyday life.
Where do you think we are in the evolution, in the narrative of social? Are we in the middle, at the beginning, or getting towards the end?
Well, I think it's certainly becoming like more of, and I know it's such an overused word, platform, but the way Facebook built things is they've built this, really beautiful and elegant platform where they've been able to plug in other companies like Spotify to build a great music sharing service with playlists. And, that's what we always wanted to do. We had more music rights than anyone in the world at Myspace. And, from there, we didn't execute as well. We sort of bolted that feature on top of what they had at Myspace. And I think what Facebook's done is they've created sort of the bones where, they can bolt any kind of media on top of that. And, not only media, but, personal interest, anything with politics, literature, you name it. And so I think they've created that framework for that to easily happen. I think that it continues to move forward in that direction and, travel virtually any category.
What is still the remaining question about Facebook? Where are they most vulnerable?
I think they're most vulnerable in potentially getting too big, too corporate, and slowing down, especially if they go public. There are, certain issues that they're going to have to deal with where they won't be able to make decisions as quickly, for example. They'll have to be more thoughtful in some of their privacy concerns, and the features that they roll out, they may not be able to roll out quite as quickly. And then, even more importantly, I think one of the big issues that they're going to face is, okay, I'm out of the first, 100 employees, 95 out of the 100 are gone. And they're gone because they already made a lot of money. And that's going to quickly happen more and more. And they're going to have to make sure that they motivate their top employees by the work environment and sort of the mission of, what they're trying to accomplish, as opposed to, hey, you can become the next person worth $100 million simply by working at Facebook.
Did you see The Social Network?
I did not.
If they make a movie about MySpace, who will play ChrisDewolfe?
I have not even thought about anything like that. I have my head down on MindJolt right now. We have a nice company with about 75 people. We're making our own games, both on mobile and for Facebook, ironically, and just directly for the web. And we're totally focused on that and looking at great new companies to buy and cool new games to build.
Well, ChrisDewolfe, I want to thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV, and we will look forward to having you on the show many more times to talk about MindJolt.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.